From Significant, this is Crack It in an Hour. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crack It in an Hour, where we take one problem once a week and try to crack it in 1 hour. I'm Jessie.
I'm Roman.
And this week, we have the fabulous, the wonderful, the one and only Dany Lennon.
Quelle horreur.
Exactly. Dany Lennon, casting director for creative businesses. But as you said earlier, your sole purpose is to actually architect and build those businesses using the best creative human beings in the world.
Welcome, Dany.
I actually like the term that Roman used a moment ago where he called me a creative constructor. And I think I'm going to steal that term.
Yeah, I love it.
So thank you for that one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
At least you made the trip
now
for something.
I just need to know what am I constructing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well, I don't think you have to know.
Creative. I just need to know what
That's the beauty, is not knowing yet what you're constructing.
This is true. Can I construct you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to
go.
construct this episode.
Okie dokie.
Thanks for joining us, Dany.
thank you.
Thank you.
So cool to have you.
Thank you for having me and my hair.
Yes, I mean,
Double
this
red.
is going to be an epic
double
episode.
red today.
Yeah, that's right.
We are double red. Exactly.
For a second, I thought that was the gum, but now I'm getting Big Red mixed up with Double Mint, and I think we should just make a new gum called Double Red.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So we'll work on that next.
Right,
but-
my God. Big Red, that's got a spicy taste to it.
It
so
sure
we're gonna
does.
have to create our own taste for Double Red.
I love it.
Right.
All right. So for those of you who have listened before, you know the drill. If you haven't, I am the only person here who knows the topic of this week's podcast because I am the host. Dany and Roman, you guys have no idea what we're going to talk about today.
I do not know anything, and I'm going to start the clock.
Start the clock and let's go. Okay. So I'm going to, I feel like usually, when Simon's here, we always talk about how Simon always brings a topic where he wants to create a business. Roman, you generally want to fix the world.
Yeah, climate change.
Yeah, climate change, rebuilding LA. I usually want to have fun, more fun, and just bring more fun into the world. And I think this topic sort of falls along those lines, but I also think it's just, I will say this out of the gate, I don't even know if this has a solution, but it's something that I've been dying to talk about. And I think it is the lost art of conversation.
Oh, wow, that's deep.
I know. I know.
I love this.
This is such a great pick for Dany.
This is a
Congratulations.
great
That is
pick.
amazing.
Great.
Amazing.
And it popped into my head recently because a friend spontaneously called me. And I saw the phone call and I was like, oh my God, what's wrong? I pick up. Hey, what's up? Just wanted to catch up. We're just chatting on the phone. And I started thinking why? I mean, I can tell you all the reasons why that doesn't really happen anymore, but it's made me feel like we're really missing meaningful, intentional, focused conversation with each other. And how do we bring that back? How do we encourage more meaningful conversation? So I'm going to give us a couple little facts and statistics to get us started. And then we can just jump in and talk about anything. None of this will really be a surprise, right? I mean, phone calls used to really be a lifeline. That was how you literally connected with people. And then of course we had email, we have texting, we have, any form of communicating, even just DMing on Instagram now is considered a form of communication with each other. Certainly texting dominates. It's the default form of communication now. I saw that 75% of Gen Z say that they prefer texting over talking, even with their really close friends. So it's not like, I think there was some misperception that people just wanted to handle trivial conversations over text, but they would still talk to their closest friends. But you see it when you go out to eat, right? You're sitting around a table and what is everybody doing? They're on their phones. No one's having conversation with each other. I've found it really interesting that we now ask somebody, can I call you? It's become a bit of like a pre-ritual. You have to ask first. And I think it comes from an anxiety that has bubbled up now around speaking on the phone. So there was another study, this was specifically in the UK, but it found that 61% of people under 35 experience anxiety when receiving an unexpected phone call. Sort of what happened to me the other day. I thought, oh my God, is something wrong?
Yeah.
But now because of that, we literally ask people, hey, can I call you? Is it okay if I call? And I think it's not just the meaningful conversation that's important, but the spontaneity of conversation, I think, is very important. I think the last thing I'll add on this, and I can talk a little bit later about some of the benefits of meaningful conversations, spontaneous conversations, but Zoom fatigue. I mean, I hate to bring it up, but it's certainly a huge part of this. After you spend all day now, we have so much more like scheduled meeting culture than we've ever had before. And you wake up and start talking to people sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning and you don't shut up till 6 o'clock at night. The last thing you want to do at that point is get on the phone with a friend, have a meaningful conversation. You end up sort of just wanting to shut down, go into silent mode and not talk. So I really find this to be an interesting problem because I think it's leading to shallow relationships, loss of connection between people. I mentioned spontaneity, but I think the curiosity component of just having a conversation versus a text, these are all the things I want to talk about. Again, like I said, maybe this is not even a solvable problem, but I want to talk about how we encourage more meaningful conversation.
Can I
go ahead?
Guys, just one question.
Yes.
What can you what do we call meaningful, you think?
It's a good question because I think I was actually chatting about this with some friends a couple nights ago over dinner, and we were talking about how there's a feeling of, because now a phone call, for example, is so novel, it feels like there's pressure associated with it. Like if you're going to make a call, you have to be on the phone for an hour and it has to be really, and so meaningful doesn't mean long. It doesn't mean that, this is my definition, it doesn't mean that you have to like talk about your deepest issues or problems, but I think it means that you are solely focused on that conversation. Okay. You're not distracted.
I agree with you, but I also think there's some other elements. My mind's exploding right now because I think that meaningful, also, you've got to understand that when you're actually on the phone with somebody, you want to feel there's a purpose. Okay, so meaningful becomes a purpose. And so you're preempting that before you even pick up the phone, even if you identify a number, who the person is, what is going to be the purpose to that call, and am I, the recipient, actually going to have something purposeful to say? So the idea of meaningful to me is actually the mutual exchange of purpose. So that phone call can become everything to someone. And I know this through my work because I do everything by phone call. I'm an absolute phone maniac and I insist on people talking to me. I want to give you another perspective that's so cool, I think, about phones. And that is that a phone call requires you to use your sensory sort of senses, like a blind person. You can't see that person. You can't see their face. You can't see what they're wearing. You can't work out whether you're attracted to them at all from a physical standpoint or vice versa. You have to use these extra sensory perceptions and understanding of humanity. And it draws out things from people that are just so much more interesting than a Zoom. A Zoom, I could look at a young man or woman and be distracted by their beauty or their lack of beauty or whatever they're wearing, or, a spot on their face or whatever it might be. Whereas when you're on the phone, you are blind. You're blind. Even if you know that person, you're blind, because the truth is, Roman, if I called you up, I don't know if you're sitting on a toilet naked. Yeah. Right?
Totally. Which I do all the time when you call me.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And probably if I knew you were, it'd make the conversation even more purposeful. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it would.
I did not expect that sentence to end that way. Yeah, me too. That was really good.
I'm just saying, so take it from the blind person perspective. I often like to do that. I actually, sometimes when I'm on a joint Zoom with a lot of people, I close my eyes behind my glasses because I want to hear. Because hearing really produces much more conversation.
It's right? A really interesting perspective. I've actually never thought of it that way because I think since the democratization, invasion of video calling during obviously 2020, it's kind of been the opposite in the workplace. Like the philosophy of having a remote meeting is you have to be on video to be a little more present, to be more engaged, to show that you're committed in a way. There is that expectation. And so I think your perspective is really interesting because think of the pressure then, Romain. Yeah. You see, but going back to what Jessie was saying, so each individual who's going to make that call, there's an immediate pressure. You know that someone's going to read your soul much more so on a phone than through a text or even a Zoom, to be honest with you. Yeah. Absolutely, it has that ability. So vulnerability becomes, front and center, right? And so, that's what's so beautiful about it. So your job as a person making the call in particular is to be able to make that person feel very comfortable. So if you had that, if you had that instinct to call someone, I know that if I want to call you, Jessie, why do I want to call you to make you uncomfortable? That's absolutely ridiculous, right? Yeah. So I want to call you to make you comfortable. So I've got to think about you. I've got to think about who Jessie is, what Jessie has with me, wants from me, I want from her, and I've got to immediately make her feel comfortable. Yeah. You don't do that on Zoom at all. In fact, most people are very uncomfortable anyway on Zoom, and they're more concerned about what their background picture is.
Well, yeah, there was a bunch of crazy research about how, I feel like we just talked about this even recently, I can't remember, but how, I was talking about it with my parents, but how we're staring at our own faces on Zoom, not at the other people. And we were never actually meant to look at our own face. Like there's a reason that you can't see your own face except when you brush your teeth in the mirror or whatever. Right. You were never supposed to look at yourself that much. And so now on Zoom, you're actually completely distracted. You're not paying attention. You're more worried about how other people are perceiving you because we were never aware of how other people perceived us. You were able to just do this. Yeah. Yes. And I was able to take in your thoughts and feelings and emotions, not also my own thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it's really messed with people's brains.
Yeah. Hide self-view is a good one.
The what?
You just hide yourself.
Hide self-view. Yes. Yeah, that's a good trick. Yeah.
But but on Zoom, most people are, they've got their heads down and they're doing that.
But multitasking. Yeah. Like, exactly. Are you?
But you can multitask on a phone too. But you can't hide yourself. So, for instance, when I'm on a phone with someone, it could be a client, anyone, late at night or whatever. Well, I could be in the bath or I could be, putting makeup on. Yeah. But I'm still engaged. Yeah. Right? They can still sense me. Yeah. So it's about the senses, isn't it? That's what I think. The art of conversation for me is all about sensory everything.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna. Do you think ask a question like going back to a bit like where you're coming from with the subject? Do you think we lost that art in person too? Do you think all of the digitalization of our lives in the last 15 years has led us to like being less meaningful in our conversation, having less, do you see what I mean? Or is it really how do we fix it in a remote way?
I think it's both. I mean, I do think that a lot of people, there's so many factors that play into this. I think obviously technology, we can't ignore that. Like I said, you see people, every time I go out to eat, I see people sitting around a table together and everyone's on their phones. They're not talking to each other. It's so strange. I think that's happening. But I also think the way that we communicate with one another has you read about, and I'm not saying this is all communication, but you read about, Gen Z, even millennials communicating all in memes. Now, and I'm guilty of this, even with my sister, we don't get to talk that often, but we send each other memes on Instagram back and forth, and it's sort of become our form of communication. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
So you're talking now about the language, which I was going to say.
But if I randomly call her,
well, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Well, your sister, you can, but
no, you can't send a meme down.
Yeah,
the
you
phone.
can't send a meme.
No,
I'm saying if you pick up the phone.
I think the meme, it's the like, I'll have my hair red next time we chat, and I'll get both of you.
And you can be on our wavelength.
Exactly. The meme thing, I think, is yes, I hear you, and that's like the multiplication of the modes of communication has probably led to the loss of the art of conversation. But the example of you and your sister, there is and it applies to teens, and there's a thing about tribes and modes of communication that's really important to keep to. And if that's your mode of communication, it's important. It's not a bad thing, right? You got to maintain it. So I don't think we should fight certain modes of communication. I do agree, especially when I look at, like, obviously you talk about this, I'm like, lost art of conversation. I'm like, I go straight to my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, when I was my older daughter's age, like she's going to turn 14 in a few months, I was spending a solid 45 minutes to 2 hours on the phone with my friends.
Yeah.
And then when you start having girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is,
me too,
even more.
Yeah. Me too.
And you just talk. That's why I asked about meaningful. And you talk about nothing, literally.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And it's formative experiences. Like, you would spend like an hour and a half on the phone. You literally talk about nothing.
And sometimes there was silence.
Yeah,
I remember I had a long distance boyfriend in high school, and we would just stay on the phone sometimes.
And sometimes the TV's on.
Yeah, and we would.
But I want to be with each other.
Yeah.
Isn't that really what I was going to? It boils down to, because it's not just the art of the verbal conversation. It's the art of what do we do to be together, right? What is it that we're doing to be together? And that is what is also lost, that is producing the lost conversation part. And I think that, like, I was just thinking about my own children. So my two boys, they will call me and talk to me when they need something or have something important to say. The rest of it's by text. The rest of it's by text. So, I know when I get a text from them, I don't have to worry about a thing. The moment I see their phone number on my cell phone, I'm like, oh, shit. What's happened
wrong.
now? I know it's something important, or they, want something from me, right? Yeah. And so that's how, I've been able to sort of divide that up. But I've had this conversation actually with both of them, very, very much so. And I think that they too, I think they're asking themselves the same question, because I've got one son who now has got a baby, and he's wondering now, and you're like, how am I going to talk to my child? What that I'm not doing with my friends and everybody else. So that subject has come up even in the context of that completely. Whereas my younger son is probably thinking, how do I not talk to anyone, because I'm working 24/7, round the clock, 7 days a week, and all I want to do is be frickin' quiet, right? Yep. So everybody's got their own genre reason of why, but I think the bigger problem is who uses it as an excuse not to. That is the thing that worries me, are all the people that are using it now as an excuse not to. I went out for dinner actually this week with a group of people to celebrate Bastille, right?
Oh, you do that. That's great.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So much fun. Absolutely so much fun. A French friend of mine owns a restaurant where I live. So we were about 10 of us, right? But as soon as everybody sat down, they sat down with their phones on the table. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. And intermittently throughout the night, they were checking. I didn't. Mine was in my bag. I didn't care. I was celebrating Bastille night. It's a choice. It's a choice as well. Yeah. Because it's an addiction. Remember, so it's a choice. So you're dealing with a lot of different things here. That's why when you say, "Are we going to crack it?" No, we're not going to crack it. I think the only answer to how we crack it is by by revealing that people have choice. Yeah. That they have choice, and teaching them to understand what those choices are and why they're important. I mean, that's going to be the key to cracking it for me. And that's very, very hard. And I do that through my work with people all the time.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
Is technology the only thing?
I don't think so. It's one of the things I want to talk about, actually. I mean, I think technology, as with many things, has amplified it, accelerated it, probably created other problems we didn't even think would happen. You know, I was questioning to myself whether FaceTime was a good thing or a bad thing for the same reasons that we talked about Zoom, right? That's not answering your question, Roman, but I was just like going down this rabbit hole. And I'm wondering if we're struggling as a society to just talk to each other. Like, for example, one of the things I was reading about was people feeling anxiety about saying the wrong thing, being caught off guard, being even with close friends, everybody sort of putting on a bit of having almost like, which I don't think that what I'm about to say is not necessarily a bad thing. I actually think it's very human, but we have different relationships with different types of friends. We have almost sometimes different personalities with different types of friends, but we're managing all of those now in our head. And I think it's getting very heady, but I think people have like lost a sense of I called it meaningful at the beginning, but as you talked about, talking about nothing, like that sense of meandering, aimless conversation. I mean, it's interesting because you talked about purposeful conversation, and I almost sometimes wonder if the opposite, if that puts some of the pressure.
Let's change the word purpose here, because I think what you say is important, which I would reveal. What we're doing by talking to each other is revealing. People are hesitant to reveal what they really feel and what they really think about what's going on in the world, about what they think about other people, their work, they're so scared to speak about what they're really feeling. People don't reveal when they don't like something. They'll actually mask it with something else that's totally faux fake. We live in a fake world, for Christ's sakes. We really, really do. The other thing is the political correctness. Okay, so and you touched on that momentarily there, and that is another thing. You know, talking to people involves, you know, you've got to already think. You know, I'm sitting here in this room with you, and I'm thinking, well, I know anyway, but I'm thinking, God, what if one of you's a MAGA?
Yeah,
I think I'll leave the room right now. Do you know what I mean? Because that would really, really disturb me. That I love you both so much. Yeah. If I'd suddenly discovered that you were MAGA. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing this on this, but I'm going to, because I'm very proud of being a socialist Democrat.
No, but you're talking about, revealing things,
right? Yeah. So revealing things. I'm revealing something now. So people are scared of revealing things. They're also scared of being not politically correct. And also, people talk about people all the time. So once you're opening up to someone, it's like Chinese whispers. It goes to the next person, next person, next person, and it gets blown up into something that actually might not be the truth at all.
Yeah, but I don't disagree, but I think you're talking to specific kind of relationships, like the reveal, I'll call it the reveal issue, because I agree with it, is only with, like, I don't think people are concerned about revealing anything to their close friends.
I disagree with you.
I'm
going to argue with that one. I think even people are scared within their own families.
I agree.
To talk and reveal things about themselves. I think it's a major, major issue with families. I think that close friends, the concept of close friends, and I can't speak to men and men. I can speak to women and men and women and women. I think they're very, 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 very scared to reveal certain things. And will hide them as
I think gender is probably a difference.
This is one of the benefits, or at least the barriers that people create around texting, because if somebody texts you something and you don't feel like responding to it, you just don't respond, and you'll say, maybe later you'll say, oh, sorry, I totally missed this, and
correct,
but if we're in a conversation and you push me to say so, because I totally agree with you. I think people are way more uncomfortable revealing truths. And there's layers, right? There are layers to those truths. But if I'm sitting, even if I'm on the phone with you, I can't be like, oh, I'm going through a tunnel, I lost you, and run away from the phone call. So you're on the spot. And I think people are afraid of that.
They're afraid. But I think another issue, which is very, very, it's been so paramount to me of late, is the people have very little good news. There is so little good news going on, and people are not running at their normal sense of self. They're questioning so much. And I think that a lot of people also are avoiding conversation for fear of, not really knowing who they are, how they feel, who you are, how you feel, and indeed, they're not sure that they want to be the recipient of anything bad that's going on in your life. That what they really want is for someone to tell them something good so they feel better about their life. And so there's this, this sort of dance that we go through that we feel, oh gosh, okay, if I'm going to talk to Jessie today, I'm going to say, something really wonderful about what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
When in fact, actually, my life is shit at the moment.
Well, I always think about how many people, and I think actually this came up in a conversation after we recorded our episode on the crisis of adult fun and play.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there was some chatter on LinkedIn about how many times people will put LOL at the end of a text. And I'm like, but how many times are you writing that? Are you actually laughing? And LOL and haha have become almost just like punctuation.
This is a slight tangent, but it's a bit of a different conversation.
Oh, yes, I know.
Because it's not even the English language, it's the American language.
Yeah.
Is a language of exaggeration.
Yeah.
It's true. And I love it. I try to speak it the best I can. I love
how often we say literally when we don't mean literally.
Hilarious. Oh,
that's hilarious.
What's the tone of people saying that's hilarious? Just play it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you called me out on that the other day.
They're like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Do you know the definition of hilarious?
Right.
And that's
they'll use the word excellent. Excellent's a major word in America.
Yeah.
Which we don't use
It's
in Europe.
amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
It's true.
The exaggeration.
So it's a slight bit, but I do agree that
that works what she's saying. So by exaggerating, what you're doing is you're embellishing without revealing.
Exactly.
You're embellishing without revealing.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
You're able to hide as if you are, oh, I am having a good time. Oh yeah, everything is great. And I don't have to actually say, you know what, I'm having a real shit day.
Right.
Because I'm like, haha. That
it's
was
like
funny.
the quotation marks,
but
you
like tangent, but really interesting observations when you've come from another language.
Yeah.
Right. The American language, again, American, not English. There's a struggle in opening and closing a conversation. So LOL is actually a way to close a conversation.
It's so true.
That's how people close it. But if you notice, if you go somewhere else, anywhere, Latin languages, Asian languages, people always start a conversation by text or voice. They will say hi. They'll say hello. There will be a beginning of a conversation. When you get a text in the US, no one says hi. Nobody. It's like
really. I'm going to look at that. I have to look at my text now because I always open my text.
You will see. You will notice. It's
really that's so interesting. Well, hold on. Why?
I don't know. Let's talk about it. I think it's cultural. I think you have French roots, French culture. You lived in
coucou, bonjour.
You lived in the UK for years. When you enter a store in the UK in France, you say
always bonjour.
Bonjour,
right,
hello,
absolutely.
bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur, hello. You enter and in the UK you go and you talk about the weather for 7 minutes before asking what you actually want. All of this. In the US, generally speaking, people don't say hi.
No, it's
you
true.
walk in and can I get a coffee?
It's
It's really true. And I think there is a correlation, and I don't know where it is, between that conversational tension and there's a discomfort.
But you're talking about greeting. You're talking about the concept of greeting. You've got two things going on here. The art, the lost art of conversation, but also greeting. It's so true. In fact, I've been talking about this lately. It's true. People don't say hello. It doesn't matter where you are. They're more likely to say goodbye than they are to say hello.
Bye.
Which is bye.
But on text.
Wouldn't want to be here. I mean, but I think that's so interesting. I haven't thought about this, and I want to think more about the greeting syndrome.
You'll pay a little more attention, and you'll see it.
I will.
I I'm feeling confident I don't fit in that bucket, but I'm going to pay attention to my own. I mean, but you know what's it made me think of? How often when I walk into like a coffee shop, I do always say, hey, how's it going? And they're always I always get a shocked response like, oh, I'm good. Thank you for asking. I'm like, am I the first person who's asking that?
Well, here's another example, actually, that's a like massive cultural differences. And you'll be like, yeah, but I mean, we're not going to do that. But let me tell you an example. And I don't know if it's still the case because I haven't worked in France in 20 years. But I imagine it's still the case. When you walk in the office in a corporate environment, you basically give la bise, like a kiss to the cheeks, to like everyone on your floor.
Anyone, yes.
Like it takes you like if you work in a if you work but
right?
like let me finish my thought. If you're on a big team, it takes you like 22 minutes to say hello to everyone. Like literally. But where this is going is it actually forget about la bise, but just think about, hey, how you doing every morning. And not the how you doing in the New Yorker way, the how are you? Like I want to hear your answer. Right? I'm interested in that curious answer. This is how you start a conversation.
Yeah.
Like you culturally you encourage conversation every morning when you walk in the office.
I think that's a huge component of this because you asked about whether technology is the only problem and maybe technology also contributed to this. But I think people's lack of patience, genuine interest, curiosity, it's more a formality than an actual. When I say, hey, how are you? The general expectation is for you to say, I'm good. Okay, good. We did it. And we move on. Not really. Hey, how are you? And I've read some interesting things about how you're supposed to ask twice because if you ask a second time,
then you get a real
answer because then a person's like, oh, you actually want to know. You're interested. You don't just, but really, how are you? And then somebody will say, but you have to invite.
You can turn it around, Jesse, because you can turn it around to, say I'm the recipient of, hello, how are you? Okay. But are you really saying it because you really want to know how I am?
Yeah.
Right?
Which is why when you ask a second time, it
reinforces to me,
really
the recipient,
exactly
that you really want
Which
to
is
know.
why I think that we need to, sure, yes, less technology would be a great solution to this problem if we were really trying to crack how to create more meaningful conversations. But I almost wonder if there are tools and things like this that we have to give people to say, like, for example, there's a lot of research about how having just 10 minutes of meaningful conversation a day significantly improves well-being.
For any age, by the way, and that goes through any age. By the way, I want to couple that with community does work. People seek out communities of like-mindedness. Why do they seek out community of like-mindedness?
Yeah.
And that can be through mental ill health or ill health. It can also be through religion. It can be through, a street community of some sort, all kinds of different things, right? People do seek those things out. Why? Because they want to talk to people.
Yes.
If you look at communities out there, they're not texting and on their phones the whole time. So those communities are communicating. Okay, so it does exist within humanity.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, it's down to a choice. That's people true. Who seek out those communities are seeking out conversation about like-mindedness.
Right? What I was thinking about, and I think this is part of it, self-care wellness culture, right? It became the biggest trend in the last 5 years. I mean, an entire industry blew up around it.
Yes.
And if there's scientific proof that having a 10-minute conversation can decrease depression, it could increase your overall well-being, your mood.
That's so good.
I'm like, well, why hasn't conversation been a part of?
You get your watch notification.
Yeah.
Hey, exactly.
You've been sitting
why doesn't
for 3
hours?
My thing tells me to stand. But why?
Exactly.
It's like it sounds like you've been talking like a robot all day. Yeah. Why haven't you called? You haven't made a phone call yet today.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Why hasn't conversation been part of wellness culture?
Because you need to educate. You need to
But I think that's part of the answer.
Those
the
people,
wellness culture is really good.
Those people in the wellness culture are seeking out those conversations through their therapists a great deal. Most people
that's
I
actually
talk
very
to
interesting.
have therapists, and they consider that their private moment, their reveal moment, their shared moment, their everything moment. And the majority of people do have access to that, okay? The thing that's missing for me is that I've had therapy, many times in my life. I'm not in therapy at the moment. Possibly I should be, but I'm not. But
we'll consider this an hour of therapy.
It's an hour of therapy. But I have to tell you something, and I said this to my girlfriend, Kat, the other night. I said to her, why don't we confide in each other more? I told her that because she was feeling, I said, why don't we? I see you 2 or 3 times a week, and we don't confide in each other anymore. You're not in therapy right now. I'm not in therapy right now. Why aren't we utilizing this friendship in that way?
Yeah.
And she said we have to make we have to make a grand effort.
Yeah.
Effort. It's an effort as well.
It's interesting. It brings another cultural different thought. It's you're kind of speaking to the double-edged sword of the American therapy culture, because I think
yes, it's replaced.
Because I think what's always been fantastic to me in the US is that it's absolutely not taboo to see a therapist. Everybody talks about it. Yeah, you're at work.
It's actually almost cool.
It's encouraging. It's cool. You're at work and someone will tell you, I can't take that 4 p.m. call. I have my weekly therapy session.
Right.
Like the first time I heard that years ago, I was like, oh, you can say that? Like literally, in France, and it's evolved. Granted, I can over the last few weeks, I've had a few people in France tell me, hey, there's eye rolls. Things have evolved, but culturally.
It's very much part of American culture. It's like
you have a problem in France if you go to therapy. It's, again, I'll caveat, it's evolving, but in the culture, it's a little bit of that.
But let's go back to
the other edge of that sort is people, I think, confide in their friends
less.
More in France than here.
Exactly. Less because therapy has. When you said it, I hadn't even thought about it until you said
really
it.
Interesting.
That
it's taken the place of that friendship and even the family relationship to a certain extent. I mean, when I was growing up, I confided in my sisters. I confided in my mum and dad. For different reasons and purposes, right? And I tell my children all the time, I'm here. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 ears. I'm still alive.
Got a lifetime of knowledge and advice.
Exactly. But I think they're embarrassed. There's an embarrassment to it, to reveal. It's back to this thing. You're undressing yourself. For a culture, I came from, a hippie culture. So undressing myself literally was nothing. So undressing myself, I'm serious. There is a comparison to be made because the same sense of reveal vocally is no different to, me just taking my bra off right now and throwing it on the floor.
Woo,
it's
podcast.
the same, exactly. Woo, podcast. Do you know what I mean? It's the same sense of freedom of reveal without being judged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Though the parent relationship is a little different. I mean, when you talked about your sons, you say, "Woo, I'm here," like. It's a whole other chapter.
Your friends are more likely, Roman, to judge you so much more than your own parents.
Absolutely,
right.
But it's just in our DNA, your relationship with a parent is different. And for some people, it will be much easier to talk to their parent than to their friends. But for most people, it isn't the case.
I agree. I understand. I agree. So let's just go a little bit too, because we're being very serious, a bit of naughtiness here, because the art of conversation should, also takes place in bed.
Yes.
Where did the art of conversation post, sex? That's gone away too.
Yeah. Well, people aren't having sex anymore.
Well, they're not having as much sex.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later, darling. Yeah. But when they do, that art of conversation has gone too, because there was times certainly when I, was at my raging time, that was it. We had a cigarette, we talked, had a drink, and hopefully went on to a second round. Do you know what I mean? But there was the art of conversation. That art of conversation, by the way, was not just talking about how great that sex was at that time. We would talk about everything. I know from talking to friends, from talking to my children and their friends, etc., that is not taking place either. Equally, it's not taking place at a dinner table.
Well, and I know I touched.
Roman has left the chat.
Yeah. I know that I briefly brought this up, but I think our lives in general are so overscheduled now that it's very hard to. You're constantly moving from one thing to the next. Even relaxation time, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna watch a show before I go to bed. Like you're sort of, everything has like a plan and a place throughout the day that there's so little moments. Or I could even talk about the disappearance of the third space actually has an impact on people's ability to have these types of conversations, because the example you're talking about, and it's sort of back to, I forget who said it in the beginning. I think you said it, Roman. It's the space where you don't have there is no plan to talk about something. There can be silence, then conversation, then more silence. Then maybe you're not talking about anything. You're almost talking about nothing. And I think the overscheduling, but also the loss of like physical spaces to have that kind of like, just go sit in the park and we're not sitting.
Yeah, there's bars and restaurants everywhere.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? And it's usually a good place for a conversation.
Well, I mean, that's still the time. That's probably the one place where a lot of that conversation still does happen. Over a drink.
Because I want you to be able to get something out of this. Because what I want to, for you to conclude and everything, and to feel that there's something to bite on, is, what is the solution? What influence can we have on society to be able to certainly direct this correctly, course correct, so to speak, because I think humans are built, we're built with all this. It's not like we're going to teach something new. It's all inside of us. So what will generate the choice to reveal, to have conversations, to bring that back? That's what you have to think about. You as strategists have to think about, what is that?
I think I'm going to go, first things first, I stand by the making it part of wellness culture, making it part of self-care culture, because I think the minute you do that, it becomes a badge for people. It becomes actually something that you almost, that's the interesting thing about wellness culture, is it becomes a bit of a status divide. Like, at one point it was cool how little sleep you got. Now it's cool if you get enough sleep.
Right.
And I think it could be the same thing. Like, you hear it a little bit, right? People sort of talking about, I set timers on my apps, on my social apps, and I only use this app for 15 minutes a day. And then I put my phone away and I don't keep my phone here. And there's people almost bragging about it, which is a good thing. I agree with this. But I think if you encourage meaningful conversation as one of those components, I think that you could get there. I think if Simon were here, Simon's probably going to listen to this episode and be like, talk about gamification, gamify it. Right? I miss Simon this week. But I think it's an interesting thought. It's always an interesting thought in culture today, where you're like, okay, gain points for.
Really? Do we have to go there?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I actually think that that's going to wane. I do. I really do. I see gamification and all that waning. I think that people want, young Gen Zs and alphas want experiences, and they want to feel it, which is why the, live events and all that is coming back, and retail's going to come back. All sorts of things are going to come back to offer people experiences. And by the way, when they have those experiences, they're going to be forced to talk about it. Yeah. Very, very, very much so. They will do.
Yeah, but I think the thing with gamification, and I don't mean like,
are you a gamer?
No.
Good.
No.
Okay.
And I don't mean like
good.
I loathe it. Absolutely loathe it. I went out with someone who on the weekends literally would spend about 8 hours gaming, and after a while, you do have to ask yourself, what's wrong with yourself?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That they're gaming, but it was an addiction. It was a complete and utter addiction.
If I'm not working or drinking martinis, I'm just doing cartwheels in a park somewhere.
Oh, I'm going to have to come and visit you at that point. That sounds extremely interesting.
But I think when I say gamification, and I agree with you that I hope actually it wanes, but I have to acknowledge the fact that our brains have now been rewired to basically respond to being tricked into doing things. Like, we are so wired now for quick dopamine hits and for quick reward, then when I say gamification, I don't mean, I don't know, maybe somebody will make a Headspace type
Let me
app.
fight you on this one.
Yes.
Let me give you something right now. What if I looked at you right now and said to you, Jessie, this is the best conversation I have had in months just talking to you and listening to you. Tell me how you feel.
Like $1 million.
Right, exactly. And you're going to walk away and you're going to go home tonight and go, look at yourself in the mirror and you're going to say, fuck, Dany said that that was the best. What did I do in that conversation, right? And how did you feel receiving that? And that's what I'm talking about.
I know, I agree.
That's how you teach people.
But that's exactly it. How do you get people first into that moment where they have that experience? And I think sometimes you have to trick people into that. Once they have it.
Oh, we know where she's going with this, you little trickster. You tricked me into this bloody podcast.
I sure did. Hey, Dany. I should have called you. I texted you, though.
You did text
me. But you did say
and
yes.
Guess what? I did say yes.
Yes, and then you called me.
And then I called you. That's true. It's so true. That's hysterical.
But I think that's what I find so interesting about it is when people experience it, you don't have to sell them on it. You're like, wow, I feel better, happier, more like I feel confident, like that. What that conversation gave me is very immediately evident. But how do you get people into moments where they have those conversations so they can walk away saying, I feel like $1 million?
I don't know. I think everything we've been talking about, everything you two have brought up so far, I think is bigger than the experiencing it. I think true. People probably know the benefit of it, and everything we've been talking about so far was like there are other barriers than just get people to experience it so they end up liking it. I think most people, not everyone, right, understand the value of it.
Wait, can I argue that though?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true because I think I agree with you, but then I also think about how we think we are losing. I'm going to speak in general terms. It's not completely accurate, but we're losing our empathy as a society. And empathy is directly tied to, I did read about this specifically, to actually having conversation.
That makes sense.
But we think that because we have so much access to information, that we're reading about things and learning about things, we think we're empathetic. We think we understand the world. We think we're gaining perspective. I'm learning about this thing. I'm learning about that thing. So I do start to wonder if people actually do recognize the difference between what they think they're gaining and learning. I know I'm taking a little bit of a winding path, but when you say people know the benefit of it, I'm like, but do they? Do they? Because if you ask most people, they would argue they're empathetic. But what is empathy if you don't have meaningful conversation?
Like my roundabout answer to this, because like, you know, Simon's always like, we can play God, and you always have actual good ideas, and I'm always like, I'm the socialist, so we're going to do public policy around it.
That's true.
And so my public policy around it, it's not a policy. It's like your PSA is basically looking for a coach. Ever tried talking to a friend? People are looking. People are looking.
That's so good.
Like the rise of coaching, and I've had like an executive coach for years, and he is a fucking genius, and he's opened my eyes to so many different things. But the rise of coaching is essentially another form of
replacement.
Yeah, replacement. Yeah. Therapy,
but it is
replacement.
Therapy, exactly. It goes
coaching,
in that,
replacement.
It goes in that category.
Like, you see what I mean? And sometimes...
What's diminishing? You see, you're focusing on what people are actually buying into, but we're not looking at what the whole country, the world. I mean, the value of family has completely diminished in this country, and friendship has gone with that. So so has religion, church, synagogues, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Whether you're a Buddhist or whatever, anything that's collective in this country has been geared towards hatred rather than towards helping one another and revealing.
I don't know. This is what the headlines are giving us. But when you look at what's happening in a heartland, like Jessie conducted a massive piece of research last year with nonfiction that we talked about before, like about the sense of community in a heartland, and it is
thriving.
Thriving.
Are you talking about like the farmers and all that?
Not just that, but even like in most of America, community is alive and well.
Yeah.
Like it is, I remember
if you aspire to the same genre of philosophy.
But that's community. That's the definition of community, right?
It is, but there's community too of a different type. I don't know if you know Miriam, but I can never pronounce her name. Miriam Banakarim, next door. She developed that social community.
The business next door?
Yes, next door, right? She developed that. She lives here.
Which is awesome.
And she lives, I don't know where she lives now, but she was in Chelsea, and she did that big dinner where, along an entire street in Chelsea, where she allowed anybody and everyone to come and sit down and have a meal together, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right.
It was
Something
gorgeous.
like, it was the most incredible success. And the next door, whole community grew and grew and grew out of that.
Yeah.
People that had nothing particularly in common other than wanting to just share.
Yeah.
That's it. Why do we always have to have a reason?
Yeah, I think that's
really good.
That's very good.
Why do we always
really
have to have a reason? Why do I have to have a reason to call you or anybody? I shouldn't. I should just say, sometimes I will call a friend of mine. I know it sounds a bit corny and I don't care, and just say something like, when was the last time I told you I loved you? And then, and she'll be taken back or he'll be taken back.
Well, there is a very sweet trend on TikTok right now, which is, I know this is this is when I reveal the silly things I watch.
It isn't with Pedro Pascal, is it?
No, but
he's on every TikTok.
I wish. No, but it's adults calling their friends, other adult friends, just to wish them good night. And the conversation, and it's beautiful. The content,
I love that.
And it's mostly men calling. Really, where it blew up was men calling, like adult men calling their other adult male friends, and it was, what started out as sort of a funny thing because the friend on the other line would be like, "Are you drunk? Are you okay?" But it would always end up revealing, like, I think that person needed to hear that. I think they needed that friend to call and say, I just wanted to say goodnight. I hope you have a good night, man. And it's the cutest, sweetest, most beautiful little trend I've ever seen. But it's that.
It's that.
It's you don't need a reason. And I think that's the pressure. And, I started this conversation with meaningful conversation being kind of the aim. And I think you asked the right first question, Roman, which is what does meaningful mean? And I think what we're getting to is there's so much, there's a million things standing in the way, but I think we've put too much, because there are so many other
using our heart.
There are so many other forms of communication that now this form has taken on a level of pressure that it was never meant to have. Because now you have to have a reason to sit down in person or to call somebody.
So everything's premeditated and pre-thought out.
And it wasn't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be.
It's not spontaneous.
And I think that's, again, it's that education. It's how you, I love your idea of looking for a coach. Have you tried calling a friend? Like it's such a good campaign, honestly.
But that next door idea is so good.
Yeah.
It was so good and so successful.
Because, and I think what makes the difference between that and any regular block party is a table.
Is a table.
It's a table.
Exactly.
That is the difference.
Phenomenal. You absolutely have to sit there. And I just thought it was utterly brilliant. And by the way, talking about block parties, those also are dying out.
Yes.
Back in the 90s and stuff like that, you were probably in diapers, but seriously, there were block parties all the time, and that's another. And you'd meet people that you never would normally socialize with in any way, but it became that commonality, and the meaningful part of it was simply to be neighborly, and to reach out. And so, my biggest question here that I want to put to you guys is this: is that besides not needing, not needing a reason, right, is why we don't innately feel that urge to want to reach out. It's when you said it's much deeper, it's a bigger thing. I don't feel that there's that urge. And again, I think this affects love, this affects sexuality, this affects friendship, this affects business. We're missing on a lot of business opportunities because we don't reveal and we don't reach out and we don't express ourselves. And I have noticed that when I do, even in the context of business, I get more business. And it surprises me.
Yeah.
We think that everybody's chasing efficiency, but it's not actually what people want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the whole AI concept as well. I mean, AI is fantastic. It's an enhancement. AI to me is like getting veneers on your teeth. Do you know what I mean? It is.
That's the best description of AI I've ever heard.
It's like it's serious. You know the teeth are pretty ugly underneath and you put something shiny on top and makes it look better. Isn't that what AI is? So I look at AI and I embrace it and I see it as an enhancement. But what we do in the context of the art of conversation even, because I want to keep it within the context of your subject matter, and that is we use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
So everything's weaponized. So that's another thing about the art of conversation, or lack thereof, is that people fear that conversation will become weaponized in some way against them. Right?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to something you actually said very early in the conversation that we haven't really picked up on, which was there's a lot of fakeness.
Yeah.
I think it kind of goes back to that. Like
the facade and the mask.
Always the need to represent success and things just going well. And there's only, for most people, very few people. And usually those people, they've met them in the first 15 years of their lives, whether it's their parents or their like childhood friends, that they can call and say, all right, can we talk? Like there are very few people because of that like fake sort of culture. It's a bit of a culture.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like, I need to pretend that everything's going well.
And by the way, you know, we don't want to end on a depressing note, but this is why we've got the highest rate of suicide in the world right now.
Yep.
So let me go back to a less depressing note. We have 6 minutes to go. There's one thing that you said that prompted a thought, which actually is a very simple thought, but when you talked about conversations after sex.
Yes.
Then it led.
Roman.
I didn't know we were going to go back
no
there.
One knew. No one knew I would be the one bringing it back.
You said you were leaving the chat.
Hear me out. This
Sex,
is not
drugs,
where I'm going.
Rock and roll, rock on.
All of it.
Yes.
One thing that I don't think I see as much as I used to. I'm
so sorry.
No.
I had to say that to tease you. Sorry.
I said see. I don't see as much as I used to.
See.
The one thing that I don't see as much as I used to is in entertainment culture.
Yes.
Those kind of scenes, kind of moments, and even kind of like deeper conversations in films.
That is such a good point.
Because we know like the Marvelization, whatever it's called, like all the DC, all the movies have to be like boom, 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 action, 15 seconds things.
Yes.
But I can remember one scene in the last 5 years that I saw that was like a really deep, meaningful conversation, and it used to be everywhere. Not just the intimacy after sex thing.
I mean intimacy
exactly,
like in the broader
sense. If you tell me conversation after sex, my brain goes to those like gorgeous French movies of the 70s and 80s where they're in bed naked but still like you can't see any nudity, and there's a cigarette, and when you said cigarette and there's a glass of wine and they're having a deep conversation, right? And the modern equivalent of that, ignore the nudity, ignore all of this, has almost vanished.
I think this is such a good point because whether we know it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, entertainment has such a cultural influence on what we think is important, what we care about, how we dress, what we wear, how we cut our hair. I mean, remember when everybody was literally cutting their hair to look like Rachel from Friends? Like literally, it has so many influences that I think as all movies started to become a bit formulaic and like, okay, you need the action scene, the car chase, maybe the kiss at the end, that's it, movie over, everybody home. We're not seeing that reflected. The slow movies,
correlates
the meaningful.
Totally though to what you were saying, and also the generational thing. You know, it correlates when you think. I'm going to think about Gen Xers, Gen Zers. I don't think they want to watch that. I don't think they want to watch.
No, but if you could bring it back, this could be a way to start to shift that influence. And by the way, it might not only. You're the fact person, but for Gen Zers,
certainly from a sexual standpoint, the underperformance rate is extremely high. It's extremely high and very worrisome to them. Very, very much so. It's rife. Okay, in their relationships, in their masturbatory relationships, etc. It's absolutely rife right now. And again, this is about permission as well as anything else. This is about education. This is about seeing, as you're describing. Do you know what I mean? If they saw that as a public acceptance, right, they might then consider it, accepting for them to experience for themselves, with themselves, or with other people,
or even important. I think just making it feel.
Right. Yes, I think that's a
when was the last?
point.
What's the last scene you can remember of a deep conversation?
I know. I'm struggling.
It's hard.
I'm struggling.
I mean, I cannot. I really cannot pull up a movie in my brain.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. I think it's very important, honestly.
No, I can't either, to be honest with you.
I really like that idea. I think it would take time. It would take time.
I mean,
to have
somewhere
that
like Saltburn. Did you ever see Saltburn?
No, I didn't see
and
it.
Sirens. You should see both Saltburn and Sirens. So,
yes.
Both of them came out of Margot Robbie's company.
Yeah.
And I would say, I mean, it's slightly twisted and weird and got some real edginess to it, which is, I think, Gen Zers quite enjoy and appreciate.
Yeah.
But there are some deep conversations there pertaining to different forms of sexuality as opposed to, the conformed sexual practice, right?
Yeah.
And so that, I would say those two. But in terms of a feature movie, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even just two friends
sitting at a table, like. Well,
I mean, it's hard. It's hard cinema.
Harry Met Sally.
That's what I was thinking about.
Of course, that's where people go.
And then I'm like, is that the last
Harry
one?
No, maybe it's complicated with Alec Baldwin and Meryl Streep.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's art that's harder to make.
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
but it is.
But it's important.
It's less.
Yeah.
But you could probably have like the same way the Subway Takes is doing a really good job at bringing back debate, I think, in a way that's entertaining.
That's such
How
a
do
good
you
point.
have that in a way that's a little deep and meaningful, right? Like it's like, I think completely unfounded theory, but the fact that the Subway Takes is killing it is also that we had lost, like with the political landscape, the ability to have fun debate, fun debate. All debate became aggressive and there was conflict.
It's so true.
And that guy brought up just like fun debate.
Yeah.
For anyone who's not familiar, do you want to explain what Subway Takes is real quick?
Subway Takes, especially the people who are not in the US, I think probably will not be familiar. Just check it out on Instagram. It's a dude, he's on the subway. He's actually allegedly goes in Paris and in New York, and he sits next to someone. Now it's famous people, but it started with just like random people like us. And it was like, okay, what's your take? And people will be like,
ketchup is the worst condiment on the face of the earth.
Right.
And then he'll like, okay, 100%. And he says agree or disagree. And then the debate. And it's like a 2-minute, 90-second, however long it is, piece of just fun, somewhat productive debate.
Yeah.
And that's our timer.
And that is the timer. I loved this conversation. I'm so happy. It went exactly as I wanted it to, which is just the most fun, most interesting sort of intellectual debate, creative debate, I think emotional debate. I did not necessarily walk into this one thinking, wow, we're really going to like crack this one. But I think we talked about choice being so important.
Yes.
I think, Dany,
agree.
you nailed that at the beginning, revealing to people that they do have a choice and that choice matters. You brought up communities. And I think that is an interesting point, that communities do actually, people still seek community. They still go to reach out to communities, like-minded communities, to communicate with one another. And that's important. We talked about a couple things that we could actually do that might actually help a little bit. Making meaningful conversation an actual part of wellness culture. Maybe it's even something your wearable reminds you to do, because the effects of it are the same as all of the other components of wellness culture. If we're talking about holistic well-being, which is sort of the buzzword, this fits into the holistic component of that. And then we talked about entertainment at the very end here, and that being one of the ways to start signaling to people that this is something important, this is something meaningful, making it okay, making it comfortable for people to reveal a little bit more about themselves. I don't think we've cracked it, but I think I'll ask Roman, do you think we cracked it?
I think we opened like a much bigger subject even than you brought, which was like it wasn't about conversation. It was really about human connection where we went, which was really interesting.
Yeah. So I agree.
I don't think we cracked it, but I actually think tactically we even have some interesting things that you just summed up. And then the next door idea is also phenomenal. And then the good night calls that you brought up is part of like the modern entertainment. So, I think I will take what Jan told us a few weeks ago with the retail one is like, we have a diamond in the rough. So we haven't fully cracked it, but we're on our way.
You do have a diamond in the rough.
Dany,
absolutely.
do you think we cracked it?
I think we've got potential to crack it because, again, I think that we have to create a movement. So it's a bit like next door.
Yeah.
You've got to come up. I actually am very into this subject matter now. I'm going to go home and think about it because I think a movement needs to be created that people can attach to without feeling they're being judged, joining other people in a community where they are rewarding each other and mutually benefiting.
I love it.
And so this is how movements start. Right. This is how religion.
That's a good way to.
That's a good way to close. We're starting the movement. Dany, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
So fun.
I get to sit next to you and look at your beautiful face and a very handsome Roman.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very
and thanks for joining Crack It in an Hour.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Crack It in an Hour. If you like the show, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. If you have questions, thoughts, or feedback, shoot us an email at hello@crackitpodcast.com or on Instagram @crackitpodcast. Music done by Michael Anastasi, cover art shot by Mick Mint, and all things audio and video taken care of by Nathan Nash. See you next time.